I've got about 10 litres of 9% stout sitting here, and it's not horrible, it's just kind of average. So I'm wondering if I can take the beer and whack it into this guy here to take the ABV up to about 30%, and then put it into that little thing to take the ABV way up to about 85%. I guess we call it a WISKOUT. Is WISKOUT tasty? I don't know. Let's find out. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse, this is Stout, and today we are making WISKOUT. That's not a real thing, I made it up. But for a very, very long time, well, stay there, I've been interested and perplexed as to what would happen if you took stout and distilled it. I don't know, it's kind of interesting to me. By the way, these glasses that I poured for B-roll are full of bugs, so whatever, the bugs can get distilled too, I guess. I don't think it's going to hurt anything. But anyway, the thing that interests me about this is that stout has some pretty serious flavors going on in it, related to other beverages that are made with malted barley, right? It has a buttload of chocolate and coffee, and it can borderline on being acrid, and it's got a lot of caramel sweet flavors, and this one's pretty boozy on top of it too. It's 9%, which is pretty big for a beer. I guess you'd call it an imperial stout of some description. The question is, which of those flavors in the stout are going to be accentuated through the distillation process, and which of these are going to just kind of fade away, or we'll be able to get rid of them if we want to? I don't know the answer to that. Unfortunately, all of these beers have been waxed, and there's no little ribbon or anything like that, no string in there to take the wax off. So I'm going to be standing here, well, without cutting myself, hopefully, taking wax off. By the way, if anyone is in this situation, the easiest way to do it, I've found, is to cut a small little segment of the wax off just to get to the bottle cap, and then use a church key bottle opener. And normally, if you can get down to the actual cap and get purchase on the cap itself, the rest will all just come off. Boop. All of these are just going to go straight on into the pot, and we're going to do what is called a stripping run. For those of you that haven't done anything like this before, it's nothing magical about it, really, guys. We're just going to run a straight pot distillation, but we're going to run it fairly hard, fairly fast, and I'm not going to worry about making cuts or anything like that. The idea is purely to cut down the volume while retaining as much flavor and alcohol as we can. That's really the be-all and end-all of it. But what I'm guessing I should probably do as well is do a quick little taste of this on camera. Not because it's about the beer, but, you know, like, the point of this video, oh come on, is to find out what flavors are going to carry over and what are not. If you don't know what's in there and, you know, what sort of flavors are residing in the beer, then the experiment's not really that interesting, is it? There's nothing particularly wrong with it. There's no blinding faults in the beer. You first drink it and you think, wow, that's actually really tasty. And then you sit there for 5 minutes and you don't really feel like taking another sip of the thing. So what I think it is like, it's kind of like a balance issue and a drinkability issue. It is quite sweet and it leaves you with a slight cloyingness. The bitterness is there, but it's not a huge hop characteristic, and it's not a huge bittering aspect from the hops to clean it up. So it's just kind of a little bit flabby, to be honest. So in my mind, this is a perfect candidate to distill because all of the delicious flavors we want are in there. It's just that, you know, it's not quite working as a beer. And there are hops in there. It is slightly bitter, but it's not huge. And there's not a crazy amount of hop aroma or hop flavor either. So I don't know. So that is the last of it. Now, the plan from here is to give it a good old whisking and then let it sit for a couple of hours for 2 reasons. One, I need to go cook dinner for the kids and I'll get in big trouble if I don't. But number 2 is we're going to let that off gas a little bit to prevent the likelihood of it puking, which is basically where It just keeps bubbling up, bubbling up, bubbling up. And the bubbles themselves, the actual liquid, just go all the way through the still. Which, whoa, don't do that. Kind of defeats the purpose of distillation, right? All right, kids are in bed, we're in business. The still is obviously up to temperature. We've got the alembic dome sitting on top, so this thing is just acting as a simple pot still. Now I did keep the temperature down a little bit with my little power controller up there to start with, not because of anything to do with the quality of the distillate coming off or, you know, stylistic choice or anything like that, purely because I was a little bit terrified that that dirty great big beer in there was going to boil over and puke. Anyway, now we're up at full power, we're charging along, we're collecting straight into the little mini pot still, and when this gets down to, I don't know, probably around about 8% coming off the spout, I'm going to cut it off and run the pod still. If you're the sort of person that likes spoilers, I can tell you that it tastes very, very similar to what the beer tastes like as it's coming off the pot still right now. So high hopes, high hopes. Anyway, I'll see you for the spirit run. I have finished collecting all of the low wines. We've got roughly, I don't know, I'm guessing 2.5 litres, and it is sitting just above a 30% ABV, which means it's time to chuck on our still head, get on over to the bench over there, get some cut glasses sorted, and see what the stuff's going to taste like, I guess. All right, our low ones are in here. The still is on. It's warming up. It is probably going to take about 15 minutes to warm up, at which point we'll start collecting our spirit run, the actual product that, you know, is going to be the finished product. But while we're waiting for that, I wanted to address something that always comes up when I talk about distilling beer, or anytime you see it mentioned. There's always people that will say that you never want to distill beer because the hop oils are going to get stuck in your still and you'll never get them out. I kind of get what they're saying, but I don't know, man. I don't really believe it. Why? Because I've already distilled beer at least twice. This is one of them, and this was a APA. So it is a beer that is specifically supposed to be relatively bitter, but have a whole lot of hop flavor and a whole lot of hop aroma. I should taste this, shouldn't I? There we go, we've got a whiskey glass. Boop. Boop. This is now, you know what? I have no idea how old this is. Future Jesse, editing Jesse, hook me up. But, yeah, it is starting to be much more whiskey-like. And the funny thing is, every time I've had beer that's been distilled into whiskey, it has the same very distinctive aroma to it. And I have to imagine it's from the hops, because what else is it coming from? And it is reminiscent of hops, but it is nothing like hops in terms of beer. It ends up smelling like lemonade. Straight up lemonade. Not real lemonade, I should, let me clarify, Sprite. It smells like Sprite. Anyway, back to the hop oils getting stuck in the pot. And yes, 100%. If I stick my head in here and smell it, it smells very similar to the hop present in that. Of course, with all the deeper, darker flavors as well. Now, if I was to just distill a, I don't know, something especially like a gin right after this, I don't want that flavor showing up in my gin. That would just be silly. But that's why we clean our stills. It's the same thing. If I had distilled a dirty, great big, funky, chunky, like Jamaican style rum in this pot, and then tried to distill gin in it afterwards, I'd have the same problems. It'd just be different flavors contaminating it. So yeah, it really doesn't bother me. Anyway, enough of that. We still have, I don't know, probably a solid 10 minutes of heat up time here from the feel of things. So I'll come back to you when we have some action. As you can see, we are up and running, and I've taken way more than I need for quote-unquote 4 shots, the nasty stuff that you have to throw away, so on and so forth. Didn't need to take this much, but the thing is, the extra that I took as 4 shots here is just heads anyway. I don't want the heads either, so we're gonna get rid of that stuff. And now we're gonna be getting pretty close to the hearts. So I'm happy to give it a taste now. Lemonade-y, but a little bit more vegetable and pungent at the moment. That is what this used to taste like, and it seems to mellow as it ages out. I'm thinking that's our cut to hearts. What I might do is take a few more little test cuts just to make sure, but I think we're pretty damn close. Let me run this out and I will tell you how things went at the end. We are almost at the tails, and not surprisingly, I am finding all of the coffee and chocolate down near the tails. I'm pushing things because I really want that coffee and sort of powdery, cocoa-y flavors in the final product, but I think we're getting real close to the tails. So it's a fight between how much flavor do I want versus, you know, do I want much funk coming in? So what I'm doing is taking a small amount in a jar like this, assessing it as a whole as opposed to just, you know, 1 or 2 drops. So yes, a touch of coffee, heaps of hot chocolate, sort of cocoa-y flavor, like a smidge of tails, but you know, it's an acceptable amount. And then I'll collect another small amount and switch out and assess. It just means that I can push things all the way up to the edge without accidentally dumping some of the stuff I don't want directly into the stuff I do want. You know, if I go, you know, if the perfect cut was another 40 mils and I went to 60 mils, all they would lose at this point in time is that 40 mils in this jar. I hope that makes sense. I call this process rolling cuts, and I do have a video on it if you're a geek and you want to get into this stuff. If not, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm going to call it. All right. Boop. I need to say huge thank you to the Patreons. Thank you so much, Patreons. You're the ones that let me do what I do all day, every day, pretty much, which is pretty freaking exciting for me. So thank you so much, guys. I really do appreciate it. This is what we're left with, and I'm guessing, I don't know, maybe 350, 400 mils at 79% ABV. And this is a wee sample that I have just eyeball proofed down to, I'm hoping, somewhere between 40 and 50% ABV. Let me just double check that. This tells me it is 46%. Perfect. Let's have a taste and see how we did. Interesting. So the nose is much more heavily towards the kind of like hop, Sprite, slightly vegetal side of things. And it does still have just a hint of that fresh hop aroma to it. And to be fair, this used to have that as well. The one that was made from the APA. That faded and it turned more into the kind of lemonade Sprite thing. So I'm guessing the same will happen here. There is a small amount of caramel, a smaller amount of chocolate, and even less coffee detectable on the nose. Wow. Okay, that's almost inverted. Heaps of chocolate, a small amount of coffee, and then the lemonade Sprite hoppy thing comes through at the end more. Wow, that's really interesting. If you asked beer snob Jesse, would he drink the stout? No, not really. I'd taste it and it's nice, but I wouldn't drink it because the drinkability was so low on it. If you ask whiskey snob Jesse, would you drink this? The answer is no, I would not. But here's the thing. If you come into this imagining a whiskey, I think you're kind of playing the wrong game. It's not whiskey. It tastes nothing like whiskey. It's got this whole extra dimension and layer sitting on top of it. So if I'm being a whiskey snob, I would think this is bizarre and I would not drink it. If I take my whiskey snob hat off and I put my geeky distiller hat on, then hell yes, I would drink this because it is really freaking interesting. So to answer the question in one word, is it better as a distilled spirit than it was as a beer? I think the answer has to be yes. It's complicated for all the reasons I've just described. But it is tasty if you forget what it's supposed to be and just kind of go with the enjoyment of, you know, like what's happened to this beer. That's my take on it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If you did, hit the thumbs up, subscribe for me down below. That would be awesome. And I'll catch you next time in another exciting episode of Still It. Catch you later, guys. See ya.